Today at Tiger Drop Films, Mr. Tiger Drop Films that is, I'm gonna do a little Kiwami video of my own. That is, I'm gonna be very cheeky and cheesy, tongue-in-cheeky, by doing a extreme version of an old video essay of mine I made about 3 years ago. That's right, 3 years ago I made a video essay over Joji Kazama and Yakuza 3, so spoilers ahead if you haven't played yet, but if you're watching this, I'm sure you have. Nonetheless, Joji Kazama is a character who I believe definitively gave Kiryu one of his greatest, if not his most difficult battle, narratively, spiritually, and even physically. More importantly, however, Joji Kazama essentially meant he was an avenue for Kiryu himself to get over, to reconcile, to heal his issues or lost time with Shintaro Kazama. And yeah, of course, Joji as a whole, for some people, may be a goofy, soap opera-like twist of having, oh, your adopted father had a secret brother this whole time, so now Kiryu's fighting his uncle, who just happens to be in the CIA, and it almost, he pretty much is a near lookalike, right? Somehow Joji's just an older looking Kazama. Same voice actor and all. However, that bit of a goofy plot twist aside, being a whole crux of Yakuza 3 happening in the first place, of all the twists and turns that game has, I still think that in hindsight, in retrospect of the entire series and where Kiryu is today, and one thing that it looks like Kiwami 3 did leave untouched was just Joji Kazama, right? His role in the story. And all that. And just looking back in the original Yakuza 3, right? Because I still think that there's no reason to do a remake of Yakuza 3. But Yakuza 3, right? When it comes to Hamazaki or any other characters from that game, Lao Kalong, Nakahara, Rikia, I've talked about all these guys on the channel. And now some of those guys are a bit outdated now because they just had to make a Kiwami 3. But looking back on Joji, I do think that Joji still stands strong as a character, all in all. And one key detail I love about his role in Yakuza 3 is that he was never a real antagonist. He was just kind of a shadowy force, a real enigma as much as Shintaro himself was. And I think that his role being as rather small and quaint, but being very, a very mighty appearance, is one that really allowed Kiryu to heal. At this point, Kiryu was trying to forge his own life in Okinawa of Haruka, trying to put the ghost of his own torments that he had of Nishiki and Yumi and everybody else involved in Yakuza 1. And keep in mind, Yakuza 3 is a game where he just lost Kashiwagi, his main uncle figure he had, his big brother growing up, with Kashiwagi being that last pillar of the Tojo clan, that last connection to the days of yesteryear. I can see why the appearance of a Kazama lookalike of Joji was very formidable, and dare I say even intimidating for old Kiryu himself. And I do think that there's one little moment that I really appreciate, right? So of course they fight club, and then earlier you have the beautiful eyes scene that we all know and love, and you have the little moment they have post the fight where they just recover and they just chit chat, and you have the little moment that I've talked about prior Rikia episode when I did the Tanomura File series. I talk about how Kazama just being there to take care of Kiryu, just to put his hand on his shoulder when he was grieving Rikia in the bull ring. I think that was a very great moment that doesn't really need anything to be said, where Joji just there, being there for Kiryu, being a stand-in, a spiritual stand-in for Shintaro, as Kiryu just reaches a new low moment in his life, having just lost Rikia. Of course, Joji does appear in the final half of the game, right? The climax, he appears with Haruka right after Mine's fight at the hospital, but right before that, the way that Kiryu gets to Tokyo in time of Haruka is through a Super CIA jet. A CIA jet. However, there's a little moment where Kiryu tries to shake Joji's hand, and Joji just declines, right? It's not out of animosity, rather it's out of Joji realizing that, they're gonna meet again, and even if it is apparently an off-screen meeting that they have where Kiryu finally gets to shake his hand, I feel like that was another little deliberate moment, right? Maybe Joji was doing it on purpose, knowing that Kiryu never got to fully reconcile Shintaro. Who knows, right? It's kind of up in the air. It's that little vagueness that I like about the Yakuza games, especially the classic games, that little bit of vagueness that, as an audience, as a viewer, you're supposed to kind of fill in the gaps yourself, and I really like that. It's a nice touch. So who knows, maybe Kiryu did fully shake his hand afterwards, who knows. But nonetheless, Joji was truly a fantastic boss for Kiryu, and I do think he is, depending on, your mindset, is the toughest boss in Yakuza 3. But also one that you can easily work around, because Yakuza games aren't very hard. But once you know a moveset, you can make it really fun or challenging depending on how you play. Put all that in mind.
俺はあんたにこれ以上人を殺してほしくない。俺は命令に従う。俺を止めたければ分かってるな。ああ、あんたを倒すしかないということだな。さすがは兄貴が見込んだ男だ。物分かりがいいらしい。兄貴と同じ血の通った俺をお前は殴ることができるのか。さあな。だが重要なのは血じゃない。俺とおやっさんは絆でつながってる。その絆しっかり見せてもらおうか。桐生一馬、覚悟。
One of Kiryu's toughest and greatest battles in his entire life. A fight that isn't even the final battle of Yakuza 3, but a fight that represents a shadow, an important shadow from Kiryu's past, as he's trying to live in the present and build his own future. Having the battle against the mirror image of his father, the man who taught Kiryu all his morals and ideals, or in other words, Kiryu's true chance to show his potential. And absolutely prove his potential he does, because when Kiryu defeats Joji, there's nothing but respect and admiration between these two men, where we then have a moment between Kiryu and Joji where they're just able to talk about events in the plot, of course, but also as just a moment between these two characters, uncle and nephew.
Whoa, I guess me from the past interjected because, just like Kiwami 3, this video is little just taking chunks from an older video of mine. Mr. Tiger Chart Films Kiwami-ified. Now, jokes aside, when it comes to Joji Kazama, did he need to reappear later on in the series? No, I don't think he needed to. Would it have been nice? Yeah. Would it have been nice to also see his perspective for how he even learned about Shintaro passing away years ago? Sure. I'm sure he also knew Kashiwagi as well. And I do think it would have been interesting just to see how, besides the obvious inclusion of Joji, just to give Kiryu that really challenging emotional fight, spiritually and literally, with old man Kazama. I am curious to know how Joji even went to the CIA in the first place, what led him down that path to become an international agent for the United States and all kinds of espionage, what have you, right? Because obviously Shintaro went a different path, being more involved with his own upbringing with the orphans, Kiryu Nishiki, Yumi, everybody else, becoming a pillar of the Toja clan, a hitman, an assassin, as we see in Yakuza 2 and hinted at in 0. So, have a lot in mind, right? What a very different path, having your brother be an assassin, a pillar of the Japanese underworld, and having that all just crumble in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then there's Joji, right? Like, I'm sure him and Shintaro kept in touch because obviously Joji knew that Kiryu existed, as we saw in Yakuza 3. He knew about him. He knew about those beautiful eyes, as he heard before. Which is really interesting to me, because you'd think the CIA would have that be a no-no, having somebody related to you, especially a damn near look-alike and voice-alike, being involved in some kind of criminal empire. I don't know, right? Maybe it's just gotta suspend your disbelief, but it's interesting to think about from a lore standpoint and a character standpoint. Like, at what point do they still keep in touch? At what point do they distance themselves from each other, those Kazama brothers? Well, that in mind, when it comes to Joji's fight, right, you can clearly see in Yakuza 0, where Kashiwagi was definitely meant to be homage, his fighting style and homage to Joji's. You know, that kind of fighting style where they clearly have an attack, a defensive attack, a stance that if you attack them as a player, then you're going to get countered. It's more of a, I don't really say a parry or a knockback. It's more of like just a really swift, like truly a, you know, more of a karate move, I'd say, in that terms of what kind of martial arts it's inspired by. So that's really unique. In addition to having some really heavy offensive attacks that are brutal. Like, you know, in the original Yakuza 3, it can be very tough gaining heat. And especially in that first arena, there's not really much furniture you can use to, you know, get some free hits in against Joji. You have to really be smart and just kind of plan around his attacks, right? You can't really be too aggressive, but you can't be too defensive. That's how I describe that fight. And of course, there's a really nice quick time event. And narratively speaking, he really is a pivotal fight for Kiryu, right? Sure, you have the second Tamashiro fight, then you have a bunch of Andre fights, and then you get to eventually Mine. But with all that in mind, still being towards the end of the game, I do see how Joji can be a very, very challenging moment for the player to kind of adapt, and just being a real oh shit moment fighting Kazama. And I do think that in terms of looking at Yakuza 3 as the end of the original Yakuza trilogy in that vacuum, then, you know, Yakuza 1, Kazama is just there. He's a father figure to Kiryu and a real anchor on the plot, even though they don't get a lot of screen time together. In Yakuza 2, you get that revelation about young Kiryu sneaking off to see Kazama, you know, enact a massacre of Shimano in the past, in the 80s, you know, even before Zero. That's another little nugget you get. In addition to big man Terada having a direct connection to Kazama, right? So in Yakuza 1, you kind of see how Nishiki was a failure on Kazama's part, and then in Yakuza 2, you see a different figure from Kazama's past directly fighting Kiryu with Terada. Then Yakuza 3 have another figure from Kazama's past, that being Joji. So I do think that in a trilogy sense, that is another connecting tissue, right? Fighting the ghost of Kazama, and what that really means, and as mysterious as it is, and finding some kind of meaning in it. And I will say Yakuza 0 was a nice touch for fans, at least, giving us a little bit more of Kazama. But again, if you want to just include 0, or you just want to include Yakuza 1, right, depending on how you look at the series, even if you do include 0, you get even more of Kiryu having to pick up the pieces of what Shintaro Kazama left him in that game. The whole plot with the empty lot, and of course the fact that guys like Tachibana and even Sarah were in cahoots with Kazama, you know, big sprawling plot twists and all that. But with all that in mind, for the first chunk of Kiryu's career as a character, his legacy, it's really interesting just seeing what a father figure that you can really feel the weight he has, the shoulders, the weight he's put on Kiryu's shoulders, and what it means to be a man, but also what it means to move past your own ghost. Moving on, knowing that you'll never get to say certain things that you wanted to say to a loved one. And I think that's very key here, and tying into how Joji provides Kiryu some much needed closure. So thank you guys for watching a nice little quick video of mine, because I do think that, you know, in the grand pantheon of my channel, it's nice to revisit some ideas. You know, I got a little cheeky with it being my own Kiwami sort of video, not like a literal Kiwami, but as an extreme version of a past video I did, like, God, 3 years ago now? Man, time just flies by. But let me know what you think about Joji Kazama, especially with him getting more of a push of, you know, if there's one thing that Kiwami 3 wouldn't touch, it would be Joji, for the most part, right? Keeping the lines intact and roll the story. As far as I'm aware, at least. But let me know what you think about Joji Kazama in the comics, and his overall connection as an extension of Shintaro. So let me know. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one, because I got some things cooking. Like for instance, my Tanemura Files turned 1 has 1 year anniversary around this week, last year. Wow, time flies, man. And I've got more of the Shinada show coming out soon, so be tuned. Till next time, keep tiger dropping, and I'll see ya. Peace.